Welcome to yoga. You won't need anything for today's video, but here are some optional props that I recommend. So pause the video here to grab your things. Otherwise, if you're ready, let's begin. Meet me in child's pose. Separate your knees wide towards the edges of your mat. Bring your big toes to touch behind you, and it's okay if they don't touch. I just want your shins in the shape of a V. Then sit your hips back towards your heels, and you can always place a pillow underneath your hips for more support. Then lower your chest down towards your mat, and extend your arms out long in front of you, and rest your forehead on your mat. But sometimes this is a little too intense to start, so you can always stack your wrists or your fists underneath your forehead. Take a big breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Again, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Then slowly rise and take your time as you lift your head and press into your hands and make your way to a tabletop on your hands and knees with your knees directly underneath your hips, hands directly underneath your shoulders. And to create the top of your table, you want your back flat. So instead of letting your belly drop down towards your mat, use your core to pull your navel in towards your spine, and that will hold your core in place and flatten out your back. Bring your neck up in line with your spine so that the back of your head and your back are all the tabletop. This is an active pose. So if you were to hold it for even a minute, with this core engagement, you would feel your core working. This is your neutral position in tabletop. And then extend your right leg straight back behind you with your toes pressing down and your heel pressing back. You should feel a stretch in your right calf. And while you do that, keep your belly pulling in towards your spine. Keep your neutral position in tabletop. Then lower your right knee down and switch sides. Extend your left leg straight back behind you and drive back through your heel as you pull your navel in and keep your neck in line with your spine. Then lower your left knee back down into your tabletop. And then here we'll do something called thread the needle. So watch me the first time if you've never done this before. You'll take your right hand and thread it through the space underneath your left arm. I'm calling this the hole of the needle. Come all the way through until your right shoulder comes down onto your mat. You can rest your right ear down on your mat, and if this is a bit too intense to start, you can always place a pillow underneath your head. And if you're watching this the first time, then go ahead and rewind the video and join us in this twisting position. But once you find yourself in your twist with your hips high and head low, then just focus on your breath and the stretching, twisting sensation in your upper back, maybe even in your right arm. To come out, de-thread the needle by pressing into your left hand, returning your right hand back down on your mat in tabletop. And we'll switch sides. Thread your left arm through all the way until you come to lie down on your left shoulder and your left ear can rest down on the mat. If you used a pillow on the other side, make sure you use that here. And wherever you are, breathe in and out through your nose, calmly and deeply. Then take your time and de-thread the needle. Come back to your tabletop on your hands and knees. For your first and only down dog of this practice, walk your hands forward 1 hand's distance. Then curl your toes under behind you, and with bent knees, lift your hips up, lifting your knees up off the mat, and keep your knees bent as you press your chest towards your knees. Feeling a big stretch in your chest and your shoulders. And then you can work on maybe straightening out your legs a little bit, but I do recommend a soft bend in your knees to help release your lower back. Try tilting your tailbone up towards the ceiling as you press your hips high and back. Now let your head hang heavy so you're not straining your neck. Your gaze can rest between your ankles, and it does help to take your feet a little bit wider. Breathe. This is a challenging pose in the beginning of your practice, but just remember that the more you practice down dog, the easier it gets, and someday you might consider this a resting pose. But that might not be today, so go ahead and walk your feet in towards the middle of your mat, walk your hands back towards the middle of your mat, and find a forward fold somewhere near the middle of your mat. But keep your feet wide. Generous bend in your knees in this forward fold so that you can release your lower back, your spine can hang heavy, even your neck is relaxed. And I do recommend using blocks here underneath your hands to help support the weight of your upper body. Wherever you are, remember to let your head hang heavy. Do your best to hinge from your hips, just folding as much as you can, and breathe. Now, if you're using blocks, go ahead and place them off to the side. And with a deep bend in your knees, slowly unroll your spine all the way up to standing. Take your time. Your head and your shoulders will be the last to arrive. And once you do find yourself at standing, stand tall through the crown of your head with your chin parallel to the ground. This is not a casual standing position. This is an active standing position. So make sure you're not sticking your butt out behind you or standing like a cowboy with your hips out in front of you. Stand tall with everything engaged so your shoulders are stacked above your hips. Then bring your hands together to touch behind you and interlace your fingers. If this is quite a reach right now, then you can grab a hand towel or a strap or any piece of fabric between your hands, then walk your hands as close as they can go. Wherever you are, roll your shoulders open, press your knuckles down towards the ground behind you, and feel a stretch in your chest and shoulders. Then add on by lowering your right ear to your right shoulder. Relax. For a big breath in and out. Bring your chin back to center, then switch sides. Lower your left ear to your left shoulder. Relax what you don't need through your jaw, your eyebrows, your chest and shoulders. Big breath in and out. Draw your chin back to center. Release your hands, release your towel. Place your hands on your hips and step your feet a little bit wider towards the sides of your mat. Then shift your hips all the way to the left as if you were standing with a lot of sass. You should feel a pretty decent stretch in your left hip, maybe even your right inner thigh. From here, bend your hips towards the back of your mat as you hinge forward towards the front of your mat. Should feel a pretty decent stretch in your hamstrings. Now shift your hips towards the right, standing again with a lot of sass. Then shift your hips towards the front of your mat, standing like a cowboy. We'll repeat that in a big circular motion, so hips to your left, slow and controlled, hips to the back, hips to your right, and hips to the front, and keep it going in this direction to your left. It's going to look and feel different for you than it does for me, to the back. So try not to compare yourself with the yogi you see on screen. To the right, or to the yogi next to you, or anybody else other than you. And stop here at the front, and let's reverse. Shift your hips to the right and hold. Then to the back, to your left and hold, then to the front. And let's keep that going in a circular motion to the right, slow and controlled, to the back, to the left, to the front. One more time, to the right, back, left, and front. Well done. Meet me in Namaste, a standing position with your hands together at heart center like a prayer. Take a big breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Again, in through your nose, out through your mouth. One more time, in and out. The word yoga means to unite, and what you unite is your mind and body. So from the yogi in me to the yogi in you, Namaste.